Okay, we got Frank. We've got David Wise. We've got Caroline. We've got Tomo. We've got Norman. We've got Mags. We've got Linda Weatherly. Phil Atkinson. Hi, Phil. David Reed. We've got Patricia. We've got Siri. We've got Alex. And we've got Ginny. And we've got a couple of more people coming in. Liz Martin. Hi, Liz. Andrea Armstrong. Hi, Andrea. Caroline Day. Okay, great to see you guys. Thanks for being here for episode 14 of Theron Q Dumont's Personal Magnetism Masterclass. This is a bit of an interesting one. I've read the chapter twice. The magnetic duel is the chapter of the title of the chapter, and I've had to think long and hard about this one, really, because I think the world has changed since Theron wrote the book, and he was very, very much in a win-lose world. If you think about the duels either with pistols or duels with swords, or the gunfighters of the old corral, then basically somebody won and somebody lost. And I'm not sure that model still works today. So I'm going to talk about how I bring this up to date for our new world. And this is a thing I'll look at these days is, and you might have come across this this model where you've got win-win, directly opposite from that you've got lose-lose. Then you've got win-lose and lose-win. I actually think that these here, if we're playing a long-term game, don't exist anymore. Because, if we have an interaction and your perception is, this is what Theron Q Dumont talks about, sending out the direct flash message, I control you, I'm more powerful than you, I am weaker than you, all of these kind of things, in order to win at the cost of the other person. So, if we have an interaction, your perception is that I won and you lost as a result of what I was doing, then in the long term, are you going to let me do that again? Well, no. So actual fact, we've both lost. If we have an interaction and my perception is that you won and I lost, am I going to be coming into this? Am I going to let you do that again? The answer to that is no. So if we look at a long-term game, I think there are only two, which is win-win and lose-lose. So I think the old model of the duel, where there's a winner and there's a loser, and it would be, if we're looking at it from a values levels point of view, Claire Grazer's values levels point of view, it would be values level 3. As in, the winner keeps their life, the loser loses their life. Yeah. That spiraled round into more of an entrepreneurial business point of view. And then we weren't talking literally, live or die, but we were talking about that from a business point of view. I quite often talk on my trainings about this when I'm teaching values levels, was that Fujifilm had a 2-word mission statement, which was kill Kodak. And for a while they successfully did that. I've just got my camera out. You'll see it in one of the later episodes of the results show. In that it was a camera that was my 21st birthday present. So you can probably do the maths and work out how old the camera is. Kodak have now started making film. So I've just bought some film to work with that camera to see how it goes. So I want to put a new model on here. Now, so I would say that what we would want to go for is always that. Creating a win-win. And we've got to realize that there are still people that work with a very different model of the world than that, which is a model of the world where for them to win, we've got to lose. But I would always go for one of my lights has just flicked out into a very different color temperature. Oh, there we go. That's got it. So that's the first thing I want to say here with the magnetic duel. Then, if you do have an opponent, and I would actually drop the word opponent, to be honest with you, but if somebody sets themselves up as being your opponent, what's the best thing? The best thing is to get out of their way. And I'll give you an example of this. This would have been in about somewhere like 93, 94, 95. And Sally and I had been out to meet friends in central London. And we'd been out quite late. And my chosen thing would be for us to get a cab back to where we were both living at the time, which was in Acton in West London. But could we get a cab? There were no cabs anywhere. So it got to about 2 o'clock in the morning, and in the end I went like, okay, I think we're just going to have to walk it back, which was about probably a 5-mile walk, not that bad. But it was a 5-mile walk, which included walking through an area of London, which is called Shepherd's Bush. Mm-hmm. Now, Shepherd's Bush is kind of like, has become a bit of an up and coming area since the kind of like the early 90s. It most definitely was not an up and coming area at that particular time. It was a no-go area. But the only way for us to get back to Acton was to walk through this area. So we're walking along, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and as we talked about previously, I'm always kind of like in Hakalau, I'm in peripheral vision. And a couple of road corners ahead, what I saw in my peripheral vision was a head on a road corner do this. Very, very quickly. So I just said to Sally, okay, whatever happens, just stay calm. Everything will be okay. So we're walking up to this road corner, and there's these two guys, and obviously they had the intention of mugging us. And they were going to do that by shock, surprise, and attack. But because I was in Hakalau, I already knew that that was going to happen. So these two guys literally jump out from the road corner and go, ah! To which Sally stayed totally calm, and I said, good evening, gentlemen. How may I help you? At which point, these two guys completely freaked out and ran away. Yeah, so that's what I mean by getting your own energy out of the way. I think it's, something that I learned when I was a kid in judo and Aikido and those kind of things, where if somebody comes at you, what you do, they're coming at you, you move to the side and you use their energy to push them away from you. And it reminded me when I was thinking about this was in my early days of Huna, when I was learning Huna with Tad. I wasn't teaching it with him yet. So I'd probably done level 2, level 3 maybe. And I had this experience where I felt like somebody was psychically attacking me. Which, of course, with our knowledge of perceptions projection, you've also got to think like, so who are you psychically attacking? Yeah. But I said to Tad, how do I stop this happening? And Tad said to me, Dave, are you kidding me? And I said, no, I really want to know. And he goes, but I can't believe you're even asking me. I went, why? He said, because you're an Elvis fan. And I went, what has Elvis got to do with any of this? And he said, well, what was one of his most popular songs? I believe it was Return to Sender. So I said, if somebody's sending you bad shit, that was his words, is just make sure you're not in when it's delivered. As long as you're in the light, if somebody's sending you something which is not of the light, it will just be like the Elvis song. Return to sender, address unknown, no such number, no such zone. Yeah. So that's the other thing that we can do if somebody has an intention of in some way taking a kind of like attack on us. One is awareness, hakalau. The other is you're out. When the person attempts to deliver the package, then you're not in. And one of the ideas is, this idea of like when there's one finger pointing out at you, there's 3 fingers pointing back at them. The idea is that the bad stuff that they're sending to you goes whizzing straight past because you're not in, hits the end of the universe and comes back to them threefold. Yeah. So this is kind of like what I would do using the title of magnetic duel. Stay out of the fight. Do you really want to be in that kind of relationship where somebody wants a win-lose relationship with you? It takes a lot of energy. It's not sustainable. And overall, it's not going to be good for either of you. Now, there's a couple of situations where that might actually be unavoidable. So the thing then is, what are you focusing on? Are you focusing on protecting yourself? Or are you focusing on keeping yourself safe? So protection, from its very nature, the whole thought pattern that goes with protection isn't away from. Because you go, protect against what? Whereas safe is a towards. And in ancient Hawaii, if you got some property and you decided to build a stone wall around your property, it wasn't for protection. What it was for was to keep certain things in, like your livestock, and to keep certain things out, like wolves. That was the purpose of it. It wasn't around protection. But a lot of people go like, okay, how do I protect myself? Well, again, focus on the light. Focus on staying safe. Then, taking Theron Q Dumont's model a little bit further with his duel. When I was a kid, I think I was about 13, maybe 14, I decided that I wanted to learn fencing. And actually, Theron Q Dumont talks about fencing in this chapter. And when you first start out fencing, then what you learn with fencing is the foil, which is a thin, pointed, it's not really a blade, it's just a metal thing, and it's got a hand protector here. And one of the first things that you learn is if somebody lunges at you with their foil, what you do is a parry response, or a parry riposte, I think it was. It was a while ago when I was doing this. So as if somebody is still intent on doing that, then parry riposte with what they're doing. Put them into another direction. Take their energy and put them into another direction. If then you have to, at a certain point in time, this is a different thing with sports. Sports work with a different model. Sports work with win-lose, lose-win. They don't have lose-lose. I guess the closest thing in sports would be a draw. So there, what you've got is, there's no winner, there's no loser, you've drawn. And then what you do is you go, okay, do I want to compete in this game again? Or am I just going to leave it to one side and find another game? So that's my kind of take on that particular chapter from Personal Magnetism. I think bringing it up to date, bringing it up to like new ways of thinking. I'm not saying they're totally new ways of thinking, because, we have a number of examples in the media at the moment where there are still people that are going for a win at the cost of somebody else in another country, as an example. And it doesn't need to be the way to do it. And though, we do need to be aware of what's going on and being able to deflect somebody who's attempting to attack us, so we can at least bring this whole thing to a draw. So I've talked for quite a bit with some I'm not saying they're totally new ideas. I think they're ideas that we've talked about in previous episodes. But any questions come up about that, and if you want to put the questions into the chat, then Sally will manage that and contact you and say, you're up, and then you just unmute your microphone. I'm just thinking, I don't have a foil anymore. Do have that though. Some of my memorabilia. Sally, do we have any questions?
Not at the moment.
That's either because that made total sense or it made no sense at all. I think I'll go with the former.
Oh, hang on. Liz Martin has a question for you, Dave.
Liz.
Hi, David.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How to keep safe when somebody's sort of verbally attacking you in a group or in a one-to-one exchange? I like the idea of getting out of the way. I understand that, but
Right.
as you said, sometimes you can't. And I'm really not sure what that means.
Okay. I would say if somebody's verbally attacking you, then a great NLP skill is sleight of mouth patterns, which is how do you reframe everything that the person attacks you with. And obviously then, you're doing sleight of mouth patterns with rapport, which is an important thing, and also with an intention of empowering the person who's attacking you, which sounds a bit counterintuitive, but you can do that with your intention so that actually both of you walk away from this interaction empowered. Whereas, what Theron Q Dumont talks about is if somebody comes at you to attack you, you go on the defense and you go to overpower them. And he actually talks about that doesn't mean the person who is the strongest, the biggest, has got the most personal magnetism. It's the person that has the most highly developed skill. So again, if you think about fencing, then what we've got there is fencing is an art, it's a skill. And it's not always the biggest or necessarily the fastest fencer that takes out the opponent. And obviously that's fencing language. It's the one that's got the most highly developed skill. And the one who manages their state. I was talking about this actually on one of the results show, because Pete was here yesterday and we were recording a whole series of new episodes which will be coming out over the coming weeks. And we were saying, no matter what you know, no matter how skillful you are, all of that goes out of the window if you lose your state. And, we were talking about it in a specific context of speaking, presenting, training. And, even seasoned professionals, speakers, presenters, trainers, have that experience of what they call brain freeze. Which is where they've prepared their speech presentation, they've done lots of work on it, and then for whatever reason, they get out in front of the audience and boom, their mind goes completely blank. This is actually, and it's something me and Pete talk about more. That's a ancient survival mechanism because, if you were faced with a saber-toothed tiger, you don't want to be thinking. You want your frontal lobes to shut down so that you're just out of there. I've been speaking and presenting for 32 years. I haven't yet come across a saber-toothed tiger in the audience. But that's the mechanism that's working. So again, what's the solution? What's the antidote to that, for that matter, is Hakalau, which we've talked about in previous episodes.
Yeah, so that's what I need more understanding of in another setup. It's kind of like a meditational state, I think, where you feel secure in yourself.
It's a totally meditational state. There are two forms of meditation. There's downtime meditation, which looks like this, where your attention is inside and you're meditating on your inner world. Then Hakalau is an example of an uptime meditation. It is a meditative state, and all of your attention is outside. And as long as you're in that state, you will always be calm, balanced, and centered, no matter what's going on around you.
That would be very nice.
And Pete and I, we did an entire episode. Which would it be? It's not next week. I think it's the third episode coming. Is specifically going to be on that.
Right. Okay.
And we talk about it in the context of speaking and presenting, but you can apply it to anything. Like the example I told you about walking through the streets of Shepherd's Bush at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there, but I was terrified. I've been in that situation.
Right. And that's exactly what they want.
Sure.
And when that didn't work, they didn't know where to go with it. So they ran away. Which for me would be a win-win.
Mm.
Yeah. They were going for a win-lose. We might have wound up with a lose-win or a lose-lose, but they walked away without any bodily harm, and so did Sally and I. So that's a win-win as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. That's a good question.
Okay, Norman has a question for you, Dave.
Norman.
Good evening. So it's morning at my place in California.
Yeah.
My thought is that once you engage or allow yourself to engage in a struggle or a challenge with the other person, you have to, at some point, look at your intention for engaging. And if you're engaging at that point, you either already have decided to go to a win-win, lose-lose, or any other form in the quad. So, and my thought is that I think you already begin to lose once you have allowed yourself to be engaged in that challenge with the other person.
Which is, in martial arts training, or the way I was always taught in martial arts training, which was obviously a long time ago, was if somebody attempted to attack you, what was the first thing you do?
Well,
Run away. Yeah, absolutely.
actually, I like you, I studied Kung Fu as well as karate.
Yeah,
So, of course, I move out of the way with the intention of either making sure that I'm not hurt and making sure that the other person is not
the other
hurt.
person is not hurt.
So
Yeah,
it's a win-win.
yeah, yeah. Run away, or like one of my favorite movies is Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze,
Oh, mhm.
where he's the cooler, because they've got a nightclub which is got terrible problems with violence and all of this kind of stuff, and he brings in new bouncers, and he says there's two rules. Always be nice, always take it outside. And I think that's a good way of being, because if you're going to get into a fight, well, there's more than one person's going to get hurt, basically. So if the situation and circumstances mean that you can run away, run away. If not, always be nice, always take it outside. And then deflect, redirect it, whatever it may be. If they're still coming for you, and there could be many reasons for that, then get out of the way, or get out of their way, and as they run past, give them a swift push on the back.
And you could do that with your foot or your hand,
Yeah, indeed, or both.
or both. Well, and that's what my thought is, that I always, when I was reading the book and he was talking about I'm better than you are, I'm better than you are, it felt completely out of my
Yeah,
value. It didn't, my value just couldn't allow me to do that.
it's a very, from a values levels point of view, as I say, it's written very values level 3, values level 5, and that was very much the environment. When the book was written, you did get people, guns at dawn, or swords at dawn, or in business, it was a case of like, for me to succeed in business, I've got to put other people out of business. And the world's evolved now. So I think the thing now for me would be values level 7 thinking. And values level 7 is where true win-win first appears. All the other values levels are win-lose. Values level 7, how can we both win from this situation? And that might mean, how do we both walk away from it? So yeah, I agree with you, Norman. I was reading it. I read it yesterday, and then I read it again this morning. I'm going like, ooh, where am I going to go with this? Because, he's immediately going on the attack, which means either the other person's going to go on the attack or the other person's going to go on the defense. And that's just not going to create that.
When you created the chart there, I was thinking of what happens if I do, what happens if I don't, or
Yes.
what doesn't happen if I do, or what doesn't happen if I
Yeah.
don't.
It's the Cartesian coordinates. Yeah, well spotted.
Thank you.
Thanks, Norman. Good question.
And Roger's up next.
Roger. Can I see Roger on the screen? Yes, I can. He's down in the bottom right-hand corner.
Mute, unmute.
Yep.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
And you can hear me all right. Good.
I can indeed.
Yeah, now I'm sorry. I have asked you this before and you have given me the answer. And I think I know. And also, I was 5 minutes late tonight. So I apologize, doubly apologize if I'm asking you something you've already answered. But your logic for there being no such thing as win-lose and lose-win, as I understood it, was you can't have a situation where somebody genuinely wins at the cost of somebody else but doesn't lose themselves and vice versa. I sort of buy that up to a point, but do you mind if I just put a couple of challenges in and just see?
Sure.
Right, so you're always showing us books. I don't know if you can see that. This is Axelrod.
Okay.
This is one of my sort of top Bible books. It's the evolution of cooperation, and to cut to the chase, he's done studies on using the prisoner's dilemma, which is classic. Your chart there. So you have two prisoners. If they both lie. If they both lie, they lose-lose. If one lies and the other tells the truth, the one that lies wins. That's win-lose, and so on. And then if they both tell the truth, they don't get the maximum points, but that's win-win.
Okay.
So, and I'm sorry if I'm telling you what you already know, but essentially, he went into some very, very intensive research, and he did it twice actually, and invited experts from all over the world to work out what was the best way to play that game. And people came along and put all these clever algorithms in and all the rest of it. And what came out every single time he did it, didn't matter how clever they were, tit for tat was the optimum, because you default ultimately to win-win because you have to. That was the logic. So my question to you would be, if you've got that situation and somebody intentionally misbehaves with the intention of the other person losing and you winning,
Yep.
why would you say that that's not win-lose and vice versa? So if you've got somebody who very patently appeases the Chamberlain thing in the war prior to the last war, why isn't that lose-win kind of thing? I'm just trying to get my head around your logic.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a long-winded question.
That's okay. So I think, my belief is there's another thing that is important to bring into this logic, which is time. And are we involved? Do we want to be involved for the long term? Is it a long-term relationship? And the only thing that's going to work for a long-term relationship, and I was thinking specifically about business, is that both people win. Because, if you've got a situation where, let's say up here, I sell something to somebody in business, it's not what they wanted, they paid more for it, they feel like they've been done, as in they've lost. Am I going to be doing business with them again? Probably not. If we've got the other side of the equation, I'm going to use a business equation, a business context again here, where, somebody really screws me down on the price. So I walk away from the table going, okay, they won, I lost. Am I going to sit around that table again? No. So if you look at it from a long-term relationship perspective, in actual fact, even though there might have been this momentary gratification of winning, in the long term, both people have lost. Yeah? So it's really where you put your focus, and I think it's important to put a focus here, but also put a focus on a win-win over the long term. And I think that was probably the missing piece in the equation and the logic previously. In the, it's a hollow celebration. To bring it up to the current day, we're seeing a lot of this with Russia, Ukraine, with Israel, Hamas, all of these kind of things. Hollow celebrations. We won. Yeah, but 100,000 of you people are dead. How is that a win? Yeah. And another example, and you've probably heard this example from me before, Roger, but we did a program in a prison. And we were expecting people that were getting out in about 3 months' time. The prison governor wanted to see if us running a program like our Mindset Makeover would reduce reoffending. What we actually got when we got there was murderers, rapists, arsonists, drug barons, all of these kind of things. Values level 3. Values level 3 behavior is actually what got them into the prison in the first place. And because timeline therapy, we always do anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, whatever. And there are 3 guys on that program who basically said they would let go of their sadness, their fear, their hurt, and their guilt, but they were keeping their anger. And as soon as they got let out, they were going to go and kill, their words, the fucker that put me in here in the first place. They said, I know it's going to put me back in, and I don't care. And, for the responsibility for the prison, the governor, the other inmates, the guards, etc., that's not going to work. So I just said to them, look, if you want to stay here, then you play by my rules. If you're not willing to play by my rules, you're out. So you need to think about that. All 3 of them came up to me after lunch and said, this program is not for me. I said, that's fine. That's fine. But all 3 of them actually shook me by the hand and said, thank you for being the first person in my life to ever give me a choice. Now, for me, in that moment in time, I would take that as a win-win. Did I want them to stay on the program? Yeah. But if they didn't want to stay on the program, I'm not going to force people to stay on the program. And though at least their perspective was, for the first time in their life, they'd been given a choice to do what they wanted to do. And, I considered that to be a win. I also consider it to be a win for John, the prison governor, because having 3 inmates with lots of anger and no sadness, fear, hurt, or guilt means he's now got 3 psychopaths in his prison. So I went up to him and said, "Look, John, this is what I've done, and this is the reason why I've done it." And John goes like, "Thank you for that." and I know you love values levels, Roger.
I do.
This is like, for me, this is like values levels in action. And values level 7, values level in action, because then you get the flexibility to be able to go to, if you need to, like I had to in that particular situation, I had to go to values level 3. And what it did was, it got rapport with them. And rapport is a win-win.
No, that's great. I'm a very happy bunny now because the point I'd missed, and I've got no excuse for it because he did really cover it in the book. It's time is one thing. And the other, one of his conclusions was that so it's, you only get to steady state over a period of time, and that steady state tends to be to win-win. And secondly, it's because you default to win-win, it means that you have to bring in he uses the word forgiveness. In other words, you have to be ready to say, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you've said all these nasty things about me, and now we agree that to win-win, we have to go forward.
Yep.
And you do see elements of that, albeit played out politically in daily life. So yeah, no, it's most helpful. Sorry, I've hogged the show, but that really was good. Thank you.
It's a pleasure, Roger. That was a great question.
Okay, Caroline Deney is up next.
Caroline.
Hello. That was fabulous, David. Absolutely fabulous. I was thinking of a modern day shepherd's bush, which is trolls and stalkers and things on the internet. Because there seems to be a problem. It's usually celebrities. I've never been stalked or trolled, but it seems to be celebrities who can't let go of the fact that they're being stalked or trolled. So it goes on and on and on and gets worse and worse. Then it ends up in court and everybody gets very cross. But do you think it's because the celebrities want to win over the troll? Because they're not thinking win-win or...
No, and obviously there might be money involved. When you take something to the courts, and a barrister friend of mine told me something which I'd never thought about before. He said to me, the biggest mistake that a lot of people make about the law is that they believe the law is about right and wrong. And the law has absolutely nothing to do with right and wrong at all. It has to do with the law. So, yeah, I mean, I have been stalked a long time ago. And it's definitely not a pleasant experience. But I think, depending on the values levels of celebrities, they go like, well, who am I if I haven't got stalkers? Who am I if I haven't got trolls? A friend of mine who's, we're both big on social media. And, when you're on social media, are you going to get naysayers? Are you going to get people who attack you? Yes, it goes with the territory. And he said to me, when you get somebody who says nasty things about you, do you reply? And I said, no, I don't reply. He said, do you delete them? I said, no, I don't delete them. He said, because another no name in our industry, he said, whenever somebody does that, always reply, always go into an argument with them, because Facebook doesn't care what the content is. Facebook just cares about that there's engagement. So it boosts your posts. And I said to this friend of mine, to be honest with you, I haven't got the energy. And every single time what's happened when somebody's put something up about me, and I've just let it go. Yeah, I've seen it. If it brings stuff up for me, I'll let it go. Do I reply? No. Do I delete it? No. What happens is somebody will reply for me and go, no, in my opinion, it's not like that at all. That's not my experience. And then they go away. Because it's a bit like a heckler when you're doing very rarely do you get hecklers in a training, like a practitioner training. But, if you're doing a presentation, open presentation, if you're doing a speech somewhere, do you get hecklers? Yeah, every now and again. What's the first thing you do when you get heckled? Ignore them. Because what they want is attention. And if you don't give them the attention, it hasn't worked. Then, the next thing is that if they do it again, then this stuff, Caroline, you turn to the audience, not to the heckler, do a distractor and go, sorry, it's not me. If they continue to do it, then you're in Patrick Swayze land. You stay nice and calm. You go up to them. Your 5-minute break starts now. Walk up to them. You say, is that your bag? That's how you always know I'm about to throw somebody out. Is that your bag? Bring it with you. And then you never see them ever again. Because I just think if you're the person who's speaking, if you're the presenter and you're the trainer, that's your territory, And by the way, a heckler is not somebody who's asking you challenging or difficult questions. A heckler is somebody that is intent on taking down your presentation. And I could take it, I've got a responsibility to everybody else in that presentation to get them out. And every time I've done that, people have come up to me and said, oh, thank you for doing that. He was really annoying me, or she was really annoying me. And there was always way more going on than you were aware of. I've never had a complaint about me throwing anybody out.
Well, I can remember you doing that.
Do you?
It shocks everybody at the time. Great fun. Yeah, thank you very much, David.
Yeah, that's a pleasure. Good question.
Okay.
Paul Brucker's got a question.
Paul.
Sorry, Mr. DeMille, I'm not ready for my close-up.
That's all right. I was going to say, you look like you just fell out of your chair.
Yeah, I know. But actually, I'm lucky because it's usually my cat's chair. I'm in.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's her precious territory. I have two questions, but I want to go back to your model about the transmission and the receiver, and I got the bit about the presenter, being on the stage and finding leaders within the audience and kind of getting them on board.
This was from last week, wasn't it?
Maybe a couple weeks ago. But my question involves going back to like a presidential debate where you have two guys, or well, in our case, a man and a woman in the United States that are battling it out on stage. And
Yeah.
it's not just the leaders in the the audience, but the leaders in TV land or whatnot, and how their personal magnetism and receiving kind of gets involved. One being maybe having a lot more positive, a lot more strength in terms of personal magnetism than the other person.
Yep.
And how that they use that into making it a win-lose situation for the other person.
Yep. So, politics is like sport. It's a zero-sum game. Somebody is playing, both people are playing to win at the cost of the other person. And that's, the rules of the game. So, I've been asked this question before, and I can remember somebody asking me the question about tennis. In the match keeps going until somebody's won. And if somebody wins in tennis, then the presupposition is that somebody's lost, which is very true. If you were a tennis player that wasn't okay with losing, don't play. Because that's the rules of the game. Yeah. The person that comes into my mind, and I don't know if Paul, you're old enough for this, but there was this one tennis player at Wimbledon, John McEnroe. And he was most definitely not okay with losing.
Yes.
To the point where he's break his racket and throw the balls at the ball guys or whatever. And you go, look, if it's that, if it's such a bad experience for you, don't play, And politics is still that zero-sum game, which is it's a win-lose game, and that's the values level it works.
About McEnroe that he was playing against Borg, who was like his main antagonist, and then Borg kind of went over to him, after a point and said, John,
shook his hand.
It's only a game.
Yeah,
it's only a game, and it just cooled McEnroe down so much that he had a lot more fun, and he could he actually play better. But and my question, what if it seems like the person who has the most personal magnetism might not win the debate, might not win over the public, so it's just, it's a different kind of arena, I suppose.
Yeah, I think it's multifaceted. So we've just been talking about personal magnetism, because that's the book that I chose to do a commentary on. Is the person with the most personal magnetism going to win every time? No. And I think this is what Theron Q Dumont talks about in this particular chapter, the magnetic duel, in that you might have somebody who's, and I'm going to use the word deliberately here, player, who is more skilled. I always remember, you better maybe correct me on this if I'm not correct with it, but it was when I think it was Reagan was going for one of these presidential debates, and his opponent, and I can't remember who his opponent was, said about Reagan being old.
Mondale.
That was it, Mondale. You're right. Yeah. Thank you for that. And Reagan, just as quick as anything, came back and said, well, I didn't want to bring the fact that my opponent was young and inexperienced into the debate tonight.
Right.
Boom.
What a zinger! I mean,
Gone.
Reagan had those few zingers that really
Yeah.
made the day for him.
Yeah, and that was in. I think I got that from Tony Robbins' book Unlimited Power, with the art of reframing, which then when he learned sleight of mouth patterns, you've got 16 elegant ways of reframing things. Which is in fencing, that's your parry riposte. Even to the point where I believe that Reagan actually took Mondale's foil right out of his hand and it went flying across the room. He had no
It's funny to
comeback.
see Mondale thought it was so funny too. He was laughing and thought, hey, he enjoyed, it seemed, not that he lost the point or anything, but he enjoyed the joke or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when somebody comes up with something like that, you just go like, that was good. Even if it's at your expense, I go like, okay, you got me with that one.
I don't want to rattle on and on, but are you still planning on doing doing kind of a dissecting or, analyzing Donald Trump's use of
Yes.
magnetism? Because I'd be interested in
Well, it won't be just magnetism. It'll be his use of hypnosis, his use of anchoring. And it's not just Donald Trump that does that. I mean, Barack Obama was also absolutely exquisite doing that. Tony Blair here in the UK, when he was Prime Minister, was absolutely exquisite at doing that.
Bill Clinton too.
And I mean, Bill Clinton, from a personal magnetism point of view, I know people who've been at private receptions with Bill Clinton, with hundreds of people in the room, and they said as soon as Bill Clinton walked into the room just shut down, and everything went quiet without him doing anything. That's personal magnetism. So, I think the important thing is that, which is where things went a little bit awry on the first couple of episodes, is that what I'm going to share in that isn't anything about politics. It's about skill.
Right.
And, a lot of people go, well, that's cheating. Well, no, it's not, because anybody could learn that skill.
Yeah, and that still doesn't mean you're going to win the election. Even if you got that kind of skill. I mean, I don't want to get just one last comment. I mean, in the first, the so-called election that Biden stole, the rules of the debate, where you give the other guy a chance to talk, and Biden's talking, and Trump just interrupts him. It keeps rattling on and on and on, and Biden goes, "Will somebody please stop this clown? Will somebody please shut up this clown?" That didn't seem to make that much of a difference.
Right.
That you didn't have to play by the rules. But Biden still won that particular election or whatever. But just the personal magnetism issue is, it goes through, it seems to get, what's the word, contorted in some, it doesn't necessarily buy you the votes, as we were kind of saying, and in politics. So that's, but I'm interested in the performances of a person up there, using the magic of it, whether the person wins or loses. So thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thanks, Paul. How are we doing, Sally?
I believe that's our last question, David.
Aha. Okay.
Double check.
Now, I've actually got my book with me tonight, so I can actually look at what the next one will be. Oh, right, okay. Corporeal magnetism. Wow. Then we've got interesting then we've got after that magnetic self-defense, which is quite fitting for what we've been talking about tonight. The power of controlling others is another one. So I can see these bringing up some fairly major debates. And we were saying, Sally, that we might not be able to we might need to take a bit of a break. For a couple of weeks, because of the fact I'll be traveling.
Yeah.
Because I'm going out to Australia to run a Huna Level 1 and a Wizard Secret. So there's obviously there's the traveling, then there's also the time zone difference, and also I'm running events. So we'll let you know what we're doing about that when we're going to recommence. We do have another online event tomorrow at 7:30, isn't it?
Yep.
UK time.
Yep.
Where my guest is going to be Connor Healy, who was my friend Tad's top salesperson. Literally sold more trainings, coachings, whatever, than anybody else. And he's coming over to the UK to do his Connect and Convert training. So he's going to share with us tomorrow, just for an hour. So it won't be as long as this one. 7:30 to 8:30, what the basis of his selling principle is for selling intangibles like coaching, training, therapy, etc. So if you want to join us for that, what do people have to do, Sally, to do that?
Just put a comment in the box and I'll pick up their name and send them the details.
On here?
On chat, yeah.
Okay.
Or drop me a DM or drop me an email.
Okay. Great stuff. Well, brilliant, guys. Thank you for a wonderful evening, as usual. Wherever you are in the world, have a safe day, afternoon, evening, morning, whatever it may be. And we'll see you when I next see you.
Safe travels.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, David.
Bye.
Cheers, David. Thanks, Linda.
Yes. Have a good trip.
Thank you.
Bye.